The crack of a Colt 45 split the air like thunder, silencing the cattle market of Silver Creek in an instant. Dust swirled in the afternoon sun as men froze, hands hovering nervously over holsters. At the center of the square, a woman knelt in the dirt, wrists bound with coarse rope that had rubbed her skin raw. Her bonnet had slipped back, revealing hair the color of wheat. "Please," Sarah Miller's voice broke with desperation, "don't take my child." Her 4-year-old daughter, Lucy, dressed in a faded calico dress, was being dragged toward a waiting wagon by one of Victor Harlow's men. The girl twisted frantically, little hands reaching toward her mother. Harlow stood nearby, his black coat gleaming in the sun, the silver head of his cane catching the light. A thin scar ran from his left eye to the corner of his mouth, twisting his smile into something cruel and unnatural. "You heard the widow," he called to the crowd, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent market. "No property, no coin, no collateral. The girl comes with me until the debt is paid." Murmurs rippled through the onlookers. Men shifted uncomfortably, eyes downcast. Not one stepped forward. "Please," Sarah begged again, voice breaking. "She's just a child." "I'll find another way." Harlow's smile widened. "Your way ended with your husband's last breath in that mine. The girl will earn her keep in Denver." The implication hung in the air like poison. Everyone knew what happened to young girls sent to certain establishments in Denver. Sarah lunged forward, catching Lucy's boot, but a shove knocked her flat. Her shoulder hit the ground hard. "Mama!" Lucy's cry tore through the market. That's when the crowd parted. At the edge of the square, a tall figure stepped away from the hitching posts. His boots crunched on the hard-packed earth, spurs chiming with each deliberate step. The wide-brimmed hat shadowed his face, but couldn't hide the jagged scar that ran across his right cheek or the cold, predatory intensity in his eyes. He moved like a mountain lion, fluid, powerful, dangerous. Cole Blackwood, the wolf. The man hadn't spoken more than 10 words in town over the past 7 years. His reputation, however, spoke volumes. Some said he'd been a Union cavalry officer who'd hunted Confederate guerrillas during the war between the states. Others claimed he'd tracked down and killed 7 men who'd murdered his family. All agreed on one thing: Cole Blackwood was not a man to cross. He moved with purpose, each step measured and certain. The crowd drew back instinctively, like prey animals sensing a predator. Behind him stood a bay stallion, reins trailing. Harlow's sneer faltered. The man holding Lucy hesitated, his grip loosening. Cole stopped a few paces away. The wind tugged at his long coat, revealing the bone-handled Colt 45 holstered at his hip and the gleam of a hunting knife at his belt. He looked at Lucy, then at Sarah in the dust, and finally at Harlow. He didn't speak. From within his coat, Cole pulled out a leather pouch. Without ceremony, he tossed it at Harlow's feet. It landed with a heavy thud that seemed to echo across the square. Gold coins spilled onto the dirt, glinting in the sunlight. Harlow blinked. "What's this?" he asked, his voice uncertain. Cole said nothing. His eyes, cold as Wyoming winter, never left Harlow's face. A muscle in his jaw twitched, the only sign of the rage contained within. Harlow bent, untied the pouch, and examined the gold. "Well," he said, his confusion twisting into sarcasm, "the wolf speaks with gold." He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "What now? You buying the woman too? Maybe the child comes with the livestock?" A nervous laugh fluttered from somewhere in the crowd. Cole's hand moved faster than sight. His Colt cleared leather in a blur of motion that left onlookers gasping. The single shot that followed was deafening in the confined space of the market square. Harlow's cane splintered in his hand, the silver head flying into the dirt. The crowd collectively sucked in a breath. A woman fainted. The banker stumbled back, face white with shock. Cole holstered his gun with the same fluid motion. When he spoke, his voice was rough from disuse, but carried clearly across the now silent square. "Take the gold. Leave the child." The man holding Lucy released her immediately, backing away with hands raised. She ran to her mother, small boots kicking up dust. Cole stepped between them and Harlow, a living wall of resolve. His hand remained near his holster, fingers flexing slightly. Harlow clutched the remnant of his cane, his face contorted with rage and humiliation. "This isn't over, Blackwood. You and I have history. You should have stayed dead after Antietam." A flicker of recognition crossed Cole's face, the first hint that Harlow's words had struck home. Then it was gone, replaced by the same implacable calm. Cole turned, helped Sarah to her feet, and untied the ropes around her wrists. He guided mother and child toward his waiting horse without looking back. As they left the square, Sheriff Thompson finally appeared, too late and too spineless to have made any difference. "You've made an enemy today, Blackwood," the sheriff called half-heartedly, his hand nervously adjusting the badge that seemed too large for his chest. Cole didn't acknowledge him. He mounted his horse, pulled Sarah up behind him, and settled Lucy in front. With a nudge of his heels, they rode out of Silver Creek, leaving a cloud of dust and whispers behind them. The trail to Cole Blackwood's ranch wound through low hills and weathered plains. Sarah sat stiffly behind Cole, one arm around Lucy, the other gripping his coat. She hadn't spoken since they'd left town, too stunned by the sudden turn of events. As they crested a ridge, Cole suddenly reined in his horse, his body tensed. Sarah followed his gaze to a distant rise where a rider sat watching them through a brass spyglass. Even at this distance, she could make out the silver head of a replacement cane. "Harlow?" she whispered. Cole nodded once, then urged his horse forward at a faster pace. The ranch appeared as the sun touched the horizon. Unlike the grand estates of wealthy cattle barons, Blackwood's homestead was modest but purposeful. A sturdy two-story house stood in a clearing, surrounded by a high earthen berm topped with sharpened stakes. The barn was solid, with gun ports disguised as ventilation. A corral held several horses, and cattle grazed in the distance. Everything about the place spoke of a man who valued security over comfort, who expected trouble and had prepared for it. Cole dismounted and helped Sarah and Lucy down. Without a word, he led them to the house and showed them to a small room with a narrow bed and a window overlooking the western range. He pointed to shelves stacked with blankets, then turned to leave. "Mr. Blackwood," Sarah called softly. He paused at the door. "You knew Harlow before today, didn't you?" Cole's shoulders stiffened. For a moment she thought he might answer. Instead, he continued out the door, closing it gently behind him. That night, Sarah woke to the sound of screams. She sat bolt upright, reaching instinctively for Lucy beside her. But her daughter slept peacefully. The screams came again, a man's voice raw with anguish. Sarah crept down the hallway to Cole's room. The door was ajar. Inside, moonlight revealed Cole thrashing in his bed, sweat gleaming on his bare chest, face contorted in a nightmare. "Rebecca!" he cried. "Thomas, run!" Sarah hesitated, then backed away. Whatever demons haunted Cole Blackwood, they weren't hers to exorcise. Not yet. Morning came with pale light and the smell of coffee. Sarah found Cole in the kitchen, frying salt pork and eggs. He nodded toward the table. It were 3 plates waited. "Thank you," Sarah said, her voice small in the quiet house. "For everything." Cole acknowledged her with a slight nod, then returned to his cooking. If he remembered his nightmares, he gave no sign. The days that followed established a pattern. Cole rose before dawn, tended his livestock, repaired fences, and rode the boundaries of his property. Sarah took on household tasks, cooking, cleaning, mending clothes. She was determined to earn her keep, though Cole never asked it of her. It was Lucy who bridged the silence. By the 3rd day, she had taken to following Cole like a shadow, watching him feed chickens or groom horses. When he split logs for firewood, she collected kindling in a small pile. "Is this enough?" she asked, holding up a handful of sticks. Cole studied her offering, then nodded solemnly. Lucy beamed. From the porch, Sarah watched their wordless exchange. The silent rancher who struck fear in grown men was infinitely gentle with her daughter. One evening, Sarah was hanging laundry when she spotted a rider approaching fast. She dropped the sheets and ran for the house. But Cole was already there, Winchester in hand. "Get inside," he ordered. The rider pulled up short of the gate, hands raised in peaceful gesture. It was McCoy, the old storekeeper from town. Cole lowered his rifle slightly. "Trouble? Harlow's been asking about you," the former Army scout said, dismounting stiffly. "Specifically about Antietam. Said you two served together." Cole's face hardened. "We did." "He's hired men," McCoy continued. "Not just any drifters. Sam Hawkins is among them." Cole's grip tightened on his rifle. "Hawkins? Your old lieutenant," McCoy confirmed. "The one who—" "I remember," Cole cut him off. He glanced toward the house where Sarah stood in the doorway, Lucy clutching her skirts. McCoy followed his gaze. "He's coming for them too, Cole. Harlow wants everyone to know what happens when you cross him." Cole nodded grimly. "How many?" "10, maybe more," McCoy replied. "They're planning something big. Soon." After McCoy left, Cole spent the evening cleaning his arsenal: the Winchester, a Sharps rifle for long-range work, his Colt, and an old Remington that had seen better days. His movements were precise, mechanical, a man preparing for war. Sarah watched from across the room, Lucy already asleep upstairs. "You're going to tell me what's really going on," she said finally. It wasn't a question. Cole's hand stilled on the Sharps. For a long moment he said nothing. Then, Antietam Creek, September 17th, 1862. "Bloodiest day of the war." His voice was flat, emotionless. "I was a Union cavalry captain. Harlow was my second in command. We were ordered to hold a position on the right flank." Cole resumed cleaning his rifle, the cloth moving methodically over metal. "Harlow wanted to retreat, said it was suicide. He was right. We were outnumbered 5-1. I refused the order to fall back." Cole's jaw tightened. "Lost 27 men, but we held the line." "And Harlow never forgave you," Sarah guessed. Cole looked up, his eyes distant. "Harlow was court-martialed for cowardice. I testified against him." A pause. "He swore he'd take everything I loved." Sarah understood now. "Your family," Cole nodded once, a sharp motion full of pain. "Came home from a cattle drive to find my ranch burned. Rebecca and Thomas—" He couldn't finish. Sarah crossed the room and laid her hand on his. "I'm sorry." Cole pulled away, uncomfortable with the contact or the sympathy, perhaps both. "You need to learn to shoot," he said, changing the subject. "Both of you." The next morning, Cole set up targets behind the house, tin cans at various distances. He handed Sarah a Winchester Model 1873 rifle and stood back, watching her stance critically. She took aim and fired, hitting the closest can. "Again," he said. By midday, she could hit targets at 50 yards consistently. Cole nodded with approval, then showed her how to load and clean the weapon. "Keep it by your bed," he told her. 7 shots in the tube, 1 in the chamber. Always count your rounds." For Lucy, he produced a small Derringer. "Last resort only," he explained, showing the child how to hold it safely. "Point and squeeze, simple." Sarah wanted to object, but saw the necessity. This wasn't about sport, it was about survival. That evening, after Lucy was asleep, Cole unrolled a map of his property on the kitchen table. "They'll come from the east," he said, pointing to the creek bed. "Using the depression for cover. We'll dig rifle pits here and here. Set traps along this approach." Sarah studied the map. "The house is too exposed." "Yes, that's why you won't be in it." Cole traced a line from the root cellar. "We'll dig a tunnel, exit point here in the thicket. If things go bad, you take Lucy and run north to McCoy's brother in the Big Horns. Sarah shook her head. I'm not running. Cole's eyes hardened. This isn't a debate. No, it's not, she agreed, matching his intensity. I've been running since my husband died. I'm done running. I'll fight beside you. They stared at each other across the table, neither willing to yield. Finally, Cole gave a curt nod. Your call, he said, but Lucy goes in the tunnel. For the next week, they prepared. Cole reinforced the house, installed additional gun ports, dug rifle pits at strategic points around the property. Together, they set traps, tripwires connected to shotguns, hidden pits with sharpened stakes, snares designed to disable horses. One afternoon, while Cole was setting the last of the traps, Lucy found a wooden box under his bed. Inside was a faded photograph of a woman holding a young boy, with Cole standing behind them in a Union officer's uniform. His face was younger, unlined, without the scar. When Cole returned, Lucy was waiting on the porch, the photograph in her small hands. Who are they? She asked. Cole went still. For a moment, Sarah thought he might walk away. Instead, he sat heavily on the porch step. Rebecca, he said, his voice low, and Thomas, my wife and son. Where are they? Lucy asked innocently. Cole's eyes darkened. Gone. Lucy climbed onto his lap without invitation and placed her small hand on his bearded cheek. Are you an angel, Mr. Wolfe? She asked solemnly. For the first time, Sarah saw Cole smile. A brief, rusty thing. No, little one. Just a man who keeps his promises. Lucy considered this. Did you promise to keep them safe? The smile vanished. Yes. And now you're keeping us safe, Lucy concluded. That's good. Cole looked at Sarah over Lucy's head, something vulnerable and raw in his eyes. In that moment, Sarah understood. Cole Blackwood wasn't just fighting for revenge or redemption. He was fighting for a second chance. The attack came at dawn 3 days later. Cole spotted them first, riders moving through the trees along the creek, just as he'd predicted. He fired a warning shot from his sharps that kicked up dirt at the lead horse's feet. The riders scattered for cover. Blackwood! Harlow's voice carried across the open ground. We need to talk about old times. Cole positioned himself at a gun port, Sarah at another with the Winchester. Lucy was safely hidden in the root cellar, the entrance concealed by a rug. Nothing to discuss, Cole shouted back. I've got papers that say different, Harlow replied. Bank owns mineral rights to this whole valley, including under your precious ranch. But I'm willing to deal. Just give me the woman and child. Cole's response was another rifle shot, closer this time. The answering volley of bullets splintered the porch railing and shattered windows. Cole moved methodically from position to position, firing with deadly accuracy. Each shot found its mark. A grunt of pain or a body falling from cover told the story. Sarah fired steadily from upstairs, forcing attackers to keep their heads down. She was a natural shot, Cole realized with grim satisfaction. As the sun climbed higher, Harlow's men grew bolder. 2 tried to rush the barn but triggered one of Cole's traps, a shotgun rigged to a tripwire. The blast caught one in the chest. The other scrambled back to cover. That's 4 down, Cole muttered, counting their diminishing opposition. Then Cole saw movement to the west, a man circling behind the house. He raised his sharps, sighted carefully, and squeezed the trigger. The figure dropped. Blackwood, a different voice called out. It's Hawkins. Remember Antietam? Cole tensed. Sam Hawkins had been his lieutenant at Antietam, the only other officer who'd survived the slaughter. I remember you running, Cole called back. I was following orders, Hawkins shouted. Harlow's orders. He was in command after you got hit. Cole froze. What did you say? You took a bullet early in the fight, Hawkins continued. Harlow took command, ordered retreat, told us all you were dead. By the time we realized you weren't, The battle was over. Cole's mind raced. He'd been wounded at Antietam, had woken in a field hospital days later. The official report, the one Harlow had filed, claimed Cole had ordered a retreat, then been wounded trying to redeem himself. He lied about everything, Hawkins called, including what happened to your family. Cole's blood ran cold. What about my family? Harlow was there, Cole. He led the raid. The world seemed to stop. 7 years of hunting the wrong men, 7 years of nightmares. And all along, the architect of his misery had been Victor Harlow. Rage washed over Cole, hot and blinding. He started for the door, intent on charging Harlow's position. Sarah caught his arm. It's what he wants, she said urgently. He's baiting you. Cole shook free beyond reason. He flung open the door, stepping onto the porch with his Colt drawn. Harlow, he roared. Face me! Gunfire erupted from multiple positions. Cole felt the burn as a bullet grazed his side. Another tore through his shoulder. He staggered but remained standing, returning fire. Then movement to his right. Harlow himself emerged from behind a wagon, revolver raised. You should have died at Antietam, Harlow snarled. You first, Cole replied, swinging his Colt toward Harlow. Both men fired simultaneously. Cole felt the impact of Harlow's bullet in his thigh. He fell to one knee, vision blurring. Through the haze of pain, he saw Harlow still standing, smiling triumphantly. Missed, Harlow taunted, raising his gun for the kill shot. The crack of a Winchester split the air. Harlow's chest erupted in a spray of red. He looked down in surprise, then crumpled to the ground. Sarah stood in the doorway, rifle still raised. I didn't, she said coldly. More shots came from unexpected directions, but not from Harlow's men. McCoy had arrived with townspeople who'd had enough of Harlow's tyranny. The remaining hired guns, seeing their employer dead and now outnumbered, quickly surrendered. Sam Hawkins approached cautiously, hands raised. I never knew about your family until yesterday, he said. Harlow bragged about it while drunk. His eyes held genuine regret. I should have stopped him, back at Antietam and after. Cole tried to stand but fell back, weak from blood loss. Sarah ran to him, pressing her hands against his wounds. Don't you dare die, she whispered fiercely. Lucy needs you. Cole looked up at her, his vision darkening. Just a man who keeps promises. The last thing he saw was Sarah's face, framed by the morning light. Cole woke to the sound of a child's laughter. For a disorienting moment, he thought it was Thomas. Then reality crashed back. The pain in his leg, the bandages around his shoulder, the unfamiliar comfort of clean sheets. He's awake, Lucy's voice called out. Small hands touched his face. Lucy peered down at him, her eyes wide with concern. You slept for 4 whole days, Mr. Wolf, she informed him solemnly. Ma said your body was fixing itself. Sarah appeared in the doorway, a steaming cup in her hands. Relief washed over her face. Welcome back, she said softly. Cole tried to sit up, wincing at the effort. Easy, Sarah warned, moving to help him. Doc Jenkins said that leg needs time to heal. Harlow? Cole asked, his voice raspy. Dead, she confirmed. And good riddance. His men. 3 dead. The rest ran off or were arrested, Sarah said, then added, Sam Hawkins is the new sheriff. Seems people respect a man who stands up for what's right, even when he's late doing it. Cole nodded, taking in this news. McCoy found papers in Harlow's office, Sarah continued. Plans to claim mineral rights across the whole valley. Forgeries, all of them. The bank's been put under new management. Cole sipped the coffee she offered. And you? Lucy? Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. We're fine, just worried about you. Lucy climbed onto the bed and nestled against Cole's side, careful to avoid his injured leg. Can I ask you something, Mr. Wolf? She asked. He nodded. Can I call you Pa instead? Cole went very still. He looked at Sarah, a question in his eyes. Sarah smiled softly. She's chosen. What about you? Cole Blackwood? Cole looked at the small family he'd found, or perhaps they had found him. For 7 years, he'd lived for vengeance, sustained by hate. Now, with that purpose gone, what remained? The room was quiet except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. Outside, a meadowlark sang. Life continued. Cole reached out and took Sarah's hand in his. When he spoke, his voice was steady and clear. A man can only find peace when he knows what's worth fighting for, he said. And I found it. Lucy threw her arms around his neck, and Sarah leaned forward to rest her forehead against his. In that moment, Cole Blackwood, once called the Wolf, found the words he'd kept locked away for 7 long years. Yes, he told Lucy, you can call me Pa. By the following spring, the Blackwood Ranch had transformed. The barn stood rebuilt, stronger than before. Fields were plowed for crops. A small school had been established in what was once a storage shed, with Sarah teaching not only Lucy, but the children from neighboring homesteads. Cole's reputation had changed from fearsome to respected. The man who had once been Wyoming's most dangerous loner now stood as the backbone of the growing community. One evening, Cole sat on the porch cleaning his sharps when he spotted a dust cloud on the horizon. He set the rifle aside and waited. Sam Hawkins rode up, his badge catching the evening light. Got news from Kansas, he said without preamble. Man named Davidson's been asking about the Wolf of Wyoming. Says he served with you at Shiloh. Cole nodded slowly. Colonel James Davidson, Confederate Cavalry. A worthy opponent from another life. He's coming with 20 men, Hawkins warned. Says you've got something that belongs to him. Cole thought of Sarah, of Lucy, of the life they'd built. 7 years ago, such news would have sent him checking his guns and preparing for yet another fight in an endless war. Now he simply nodded. Let him come, Cole said quietly. A man protects what's his. As darkness settled over the Wyoming territory, Cole Blackwood, no longer alone, no longer haunted, watched the first stars appear. He had found what so many men search for, but few truly find. Not just a home, but a reason to defend it. In the Wild West, where a man was measured not by his words, but by his actions, Cole Blackwood had made his stand. For honor, for family, for love. And any man foolish enough to threaten that would soon learn why they called him the Wolf. In the rugged frontier of Wyoming territory, where bullets missed hearts, sometimes didn't. This has been Gunshots for Honor. Join us next week for the Colonel's Revenge, the next chapter in the saga of the Wolf of Wyoming.